You read the same paragraph 5 times. It feels perfectly clear, but 2 hours later, your brain wipes it clean. People usually blame their intelligence when this happens, but having a bad memory actually means your brain is working exactly as designed. From a survival perspective, remembering every tiny detail you encounter would destroy your ability to focus, so your brain defaults to aggressive deletion. When you passively consume information, like rereading a textbook or highlighting notes, you aren't convincing the brain's biological filter to care. Your brain looks at the input, decides it isn't crucial for survival, and pushes out 99% of it. But neuroscience offers a highly effective workaround. You can bypass the deletion filter entirely by forcing your brain to struggle with the material in very specific, targeted ways. Mastering your memory requires aligning your study habits with the brain's internal deletion rules, allowing you to bypass the filters that stop most information from sticking. Most students treat their brains like a hard drive. They try to save files by reading a page, feeling a sense of familiarity, and moving on. Elite learners do the exact opposite. They read a page, close the book, and force themselves to pull the information back out from scratch. This is called active recall. That tiny moment of mental strain is where the actual memory is built. Struggling to reconstruct a fact without looking physically thickens the neural pathways. The harder the retrieval, the stronger the connection. If you feed your brain raw, disconnected facts, it has nothing to hold on to, and the information quickly dies out. You fix this by building relationships. Instead of trying to brute force memorize that ATP is the energy currency of the cell, you link it to something you already know. You tell yourself ATP is just a battery pack for cellular work. By connecting the raw data to a familiar concept, you create permanent memory hooks. You can strengthen these hooks further by adding emotion. If you study with a timer or pretend you're teaching a room, you introduce urgency and stakes. Your brain pays attention to emotional intensity, flagging the material as high priority. True retention follows a shift in strategy, prioritizing the creation of meaningful connections over the sheer volume of repetitions. There is a specific framework top students use to leverage all of this at once. It feels incredibly uncomfortable the first time you try it, but it works. It's called the blurting method. Here is how you execute it. Study a topic normally for 20 to 30 minutes. Then hide all your materials, take out a blank sheet of paper, and write down absolutely everything you can remember. It doesn't matter if it's messy or incomplete. You just force the retrieval. The real power lies in the final step. You open your original notes and compare them against your messy sheet. Because the brain is highly sensitive to noticing its own mistakes, correcting those specific errors encodes the information incredibly deep. This chart plots our memory retention over time. Even with perfect encoding, you are still fighting against the clock. Researchers found that if you don't review new information within the first 24 hours, your attention falls off a cliff. Your brain simply assumes you don't need it anymore. To flatten that drop-off, you use spaced repetition. You review the material right as you're about to forget it. A highly effective schedule is to review on days 1, 2, 4, 7, and 14. With each review, the downward slope gets shallower, and the memory hardens. You can accelerate this through a practice called interleaving. Instead of studying math for 4 straight hours, you do 45 minutes of math, 45 minutes of biology, and 45 of chemistry. Switching subjects forces your brain to constantly figure out which cognitive strategy to apply, keeping it highly engaged. This is why cramming might feel productive in the moment, but evaporates the next day. True, lasting retention requires strategic, time-spaced friction. None of these techniques work if your environment works against you. The brain ties memories to their context. If you study while your phone sends notifications every 3 minutes, you are literally training your brain to associate that material with a state of distraction. If you want to enter a state of deep encoding, you must treat the first 25 minutes of your study session as a lockout period. 0 notifications, 0 multitasking. It takes continuous, uninterrupted attention to start forming real memory pathways. And those pathways don't actually finalize while you're awake. When you pull an all-nighter, you are actively sabotaging the biological process of consolidation. Information only transfers into permanent, long-term storage during the deepest phases of sleep. We consume more data in a single week than previous generations encountered in months. almost all of it washes right through us because our consumption is completely passive. Stop evaluating your study sessions by how many hours you sit in a chair or how many pages you painted with a yellow highlighter. The only metric that matters is what you can pull from a blank piece of paper 3 days later. By forcing reconstruction, building memory hooks, and respecting deep sleep, you shift from passive reading to active building. Your progress accelerates because you finally aligned your habits with the brain's natural architecture.